Hello and welcome to Jadwiga's Fairy Tale Channel. Today I'm going to tell you a little story which is originally from Russia, but the English translation is really funny. So listen to that. Once upon a time there was a skull, a horse's skull. And since it had been lying on top of a hill for many, many years, its outside was washed as white as marble, and the inside was as hollow as a seashell. One day a mouse came along, saw the skull, and thought to himself, this skull would make a nice home. So he knocked on the bone, and he said, "Hello, this is Mr. Twitchery Nibble by Night. Does anybody live in that skull?" There was no answer, so he moved in, he set up home, and very snug it was. One day a frog came along, saw the skull, and thought to himself, this skull would make a nice home. So he knocked on the bone and said, "Hello, this is Mr. Poppity Peddle the Pond. Does anybody live in that bone?" "Only me, Mr. Twitchery Nibble by Night. Come in, he has room enough for two." So the frog moved in, they set up home together, and very snug it was. One day a hare came along, saw the skull, and thought to himself, this skull would make a nice home. So he knocked on the bone and said, "Hello, this is Mr. Lollopy Gallopy, King of the Corn. Does anybody live in that skull?" "Only us, Mr. Twitchery Nibble by Night, and Mr. Poppity Peddle the Pond. Come in, he has room enough for three." So the hare moved in, they set up home together, and very snug it was. One day a fox came along, saw the skull, and thought to himself, this skull would make a nice home. So he knocked on the bone and said, "Hello, this is Mr. Knavery, Thief of the Coop. Does anybody live in that skull?" "Only us, Mr. Twitchery Nibble by Night, Mr. Poppity Peddle the Pond, Mr. Lollopy Gallopy, King of the Corn. Come in, he has room enough for four." So the fox moved in, they set up home together, and very snug it was, if a little squashed. One day a wolf came along, saw that skull, and thought to himself, this skull would make a nice home. So he knocked on the bone and said, "Hello, this is Mr. Slavering, Slendering, Tongue on a Tilt. Does anybody live in that skull?" "Only us, Mr. Twitchery Nibble by Night, Mr. Poppity Peddle the Pond, Mr. Lollopy Gallopy, King of the Corn, and Mr. Knavery, Thief of the Coop. Come in, he has room enough for five." The wolf moved in, they set up home together, but it was pretty squashed. So one day a bear came along, saw that skull, knocked on the bone and said, "Hello, this is Mr. Lumbersome, Tongue Sit on a Log. Does anybody live in that skull?" And inside of that skull, Mr. Twitchery Nibble by Night, Mr. Poppity Peddle the Pond, Mr. Lollopy Gallopy, King of the Corn, Mr. Knavery, Thief of the Coop, and Mr. Slavery, Slendering, Tongue on the Tilt, they looked at each other, and they knew there is no more space. And all together they shouted out, "No, nobody lives here, nobody at all." Oh, "That's good," said the bear, and he set himself down on the skull. Whether any of them got out in time or whether they didn't, I don't know. But what I do know is that this bear still today is pulling tiny white splinters of bone out of his backside.